front row. Today, we are in conversation with Ms. Catriona Jayasundera, the General Manager, Commercial and Marketing of Colombo International Container Terminal Limited. Welcome to the show,
Thank
Kat.
you so much. Happy to be here.
So, over the past few months, there have been lots of stresses on the global supply chains. So, what have been the impact of those on the Sri Lankan economy?
Well, Jayani, I think Sri Lanka as a nation is quite dependent on imports and exports. So when you look at imports, we are dependent as a nation not only for national consumption, but also for manufacturing, which has a direct link to our exports. So if you were to look at like the export market of Sri Lanka, for example, garments manufacturing, we depend on imports from countries such as China for all raw materials like fabric, threads, trims. Then if you look at our agriculture sector, we depend on fertilizer and other such materials that are required for agriculture. At the same time, if you look at the global supply chain, and of course owing to the pandemic and the global congestion, there is a reduction of vessels coming into Colombo. And the vessels that do arrive as well have a lesser space for Colombo. That is mainly because there is a big hike a phenomenal hike actually, in freight rates on the long haul, from like Far East to Europe. So it makes more financial or revenue sense for the shipping line to fill the ship up in the Far East and maybe reduce capacity for ports such as Colombo and go on their inward way to the Suez. So when they do such things, of course, there is a huge impact on the inward and outward cargo flow out of Colombo, which again has impact on the imports and the exports of Sri Lanka. It's also said that the world economy will slow down from something like 6.7, if I'm correct, to around 5.9, and this will have a huge impact on the consumer spending behavior, which will in turn put a lot of pressure on the export margins, and it may hinder our ability to be competitive. There's also the depreciation of our currency, which makes imports far more expensive, again making exports margins lower. So all this compile, I think it's very safe to say that yes, the global supply chain bottlenecks have quite a direct impact on the economy of Sri Lanka. And it's like this intertwined circle, from one factor affecting the other. That's the supply chain. It just keeps like a domino effect. It affects each sector or each element of the supply chain.
Thanks, Kat, for that. So you have a lot of experience, especially working in the Colombo port. So I would like to get your thoughts on how competitive you think the Colombo port is.
Oh, we are very competitive. As a port, I think one of the inherent advantages we were born with is its location. So the port of Colombo is right in the center of the main east-west shipping route. In addition to that, we are at the foot of one of the fastest growing economies in the world, India. And I think around 60% of the cargo flow from India comes to and from Colombo. With this advantage, we also have the fact that we are highly efficiency and productivity driven. If you look at our connectivity, I believe we are 15th in the global port connectivity index. And then on volumes, we are on number 22 in the global ports. So all this is a very inherent advantage for us. If you look at CICT per se, now we currently run at our productivity levels are currently around between 32 to 34 moves per hour, which in any books is considered highly efficient globally. So we are really, really blessed. But having said that, our location, our productivity, our efficiency, just depending on that and keeping things as it is will not take us to the next era and not keep us competitive in the future. So now the Port of Colombo, as much as we are very competitive, we need to look at reinventing the wheel, reinventing ourselves, and how we are really going to respond to the market and the developing ports around us.
Thank you. I think you have really expressed something very important, and I would like to have a follow-up question really with my next question to you. So you mentioned that there's a lot to be done. We have a lot of advantages that we have inherited, but there's a lot more to be done in terms of really leveraging, to leverage those opportunities. So do you think that Sri Lanka has the potential to become a commercial maritime hub? And if so, what are the key interventions that needs to be made in order to really facilitate that?
That's a very interesting question actually. I do believe, so to answer your question in one line, yes, most definitely. the Port of Colombo, Sri Lanka, we have the potential to be one of the best maritime hubs in the region. But I think I would like to stress on the fact that I believe the word maritime is a misconception in Sri Lanka. A lot of people think that when you say a maritime hub, it means having capacity in a port, discharging, loading containers. That's not a maritime hub. That's actually a transshipment hub, which we have exploited to the maximum. But I think that now you have to look at the customers' demands. Look at the ever-changing market, how cost-sensitive the shipping lines are becoming, how time-sensitive the shipping lines are becoming. They are all looking for consolidation and ease of doing business. They are basically looking for a one-stop shop. So how do we respond to that? Going back to your question, maritime hub, what does that mean? We have to move away from just discharging, loading, transshipment containers. We have to develop the port further, go into relay cargo, develop industries around the port, world-class warehousing facilities, maybe positions here, Colombo or Sri Lanka per se, as a destination for distribution, where we bring in the facilities where they can do semi-finished or finished products can be brought in, and then we can do the value additions and send it out to the distributor or to the next, the final consumer. We have to look at all these facilities, but when we are looking at all these facilities, we have to look at the process as well. When you say process, we have to put digitization and IT at the forefront. Like I said, ease of doing business is what the customer is looking for. So when you say digitize the process, it's not just a terminal, but the whole industry, starting from custom clearance processors or customs processors per se, and then looking at the terminal processors, and basically every stakeholder in the whole supply chain has to invest and embrace technology and IT. That's one side of it. The second side of it, we'll look at also on maybe looking at, like I said earlier in the forum, we're looking at things like maritime policies. Maybe we need to revisit our maritime policies, see if they're conducive for the current market. These policies are made in a different market, different conditions. If you look at our competitors or our peers around us, like Singapore, for example, I call a maritime conducive country. It's not just the port. As much as the port has all the warehousing and distribution, value addition running in the port, they also are a country which is ready for maritime. They respond very quickly to the ever-changing markets. They have, I think, tax exemptions for volume-based customers. They actually embrace shipping lines to invest in the maritime sector in the country. So I don't mean by just bringing in ships, but actually invest in the sector. But I would like to state very clearly that I am not saying that taking Singapore's strategy and using Colombo will be the right fit. We have to find our own fit, but maybe looking at our peers, how are they reacting to the market, and look inward and see how we can develop. If you look at the Port of Colombo, also one thing they have is that unlike other industries, we are having PPP project on PPP project on PPP project within the same facility. So West Container Terminal will be the third PPP project coming in. So then you look at the Sri Lanka Port Authority. They are basically an equity shareholder in all three projects, from SAGT, CICT, and of course West Container Terminal. They are also wearing two different hats, or three different hats really. They are an investor, they are the Ports Authority, or the governing body. They are also running the government terminal. So as these projects build up and it becomes more complex, maybe we also as a country need to look at, should the authority step aside and maybe take on, and maybe they should bring in an independent regulator for the port, since it's becoming so multifaceted and so complex. So there are many things that we have to look at if we are to go into the word maritime hub. But most definitely, we have the potential, and there is no doubt about that.
Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us on what we have to do in order to become a maritime conducive country. So thank you very much, Kat.
My pleasure, dear.
Stay tuned with us for similar episodes of Front Row. Thank you.